Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome to episode 3 of Infertile AF. Today's episode is so good. I talked to my friend Kimberly, who has been a friend of mine for over a decade, and she is so interesting. She's a single mother by choice, and the interesting thing about her story is that she didn't necessarily have any infertility issues herself, but she did find herself in a situation where, as she says, she couldn't find Mr. Right and she didn't want to settle for Mr. Okay. So she decided to have babies on her own. And I knew nothing about this world, but Kimberly goes into all the details about doing it on her own, finding a sperm donor, and all this stuff. She's so cool. She's so impressive. She's so honest. I want to thank her for sharing her story with us. Also, this didn't make it into the podcast, but she told me afterwards she gets up at 3:45 in the morning to make it all work. So, Kimberly, you are a rock star. I am in awe of you. She's also a really, really good mom to her 3 boys. So, without further ado, this is Kimberly's fertility story. So growing up, did you always want to be a mom?
I did. I always had the vision that I would be a mom of at least a couple of kids in a traditional family structure, married with kids. And yeah, just thought that was what everybody did. Yes.
Okay. So where in life were you when you made a decision that you wanted to try to have kids as a single mom?
I think it was, I don't have an exact date that I can remember, but I do know it was in my late 30s. I remember thinking about it a lot, just as I had not had a very successful run dating people. Mm-hmm. I was working a lot of hours and really just didn't pay attention to my dating life, didn't really care to, didn't have success dating, didn't have fun doing it. So I threw myself into my work, and then all of a sudden, you're in your late 30s and you realize, oh my gosh, I actually want kids. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should have focused on the dating thing. Mm-hmm. And so I was at a dinner with one of my very good friends from college. I think I was 38, and we just started talking about life. And I just said, I think I want to have kids on my own because I can't find Mr. Right, and I don't want to settle for Mr. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so... that was the first, I think, out loud conversation I had about it, but it probably had been on my mind since I turned 35.
Okay. So had you been going, was there anybody who had told you, going to the gynecologist, for example, you better get cracking, was there anybody in your life that was like, hey, once you turn 35, your egg quality goes down or any of that? And the reason I ask is because I didn't know any of that. Yeah. And I was so clueless. And that goes back to my own story, but nobody had really told me that at 35, that's kind of a breaking point and you better get on it. Right. So I'm just curious, how much knowledge did you have about the biological clock?
I feel like it started to come into play when I was around 35. I think that's probably why I started thinking about it. And I don't remember if there was, I know my mother had always, she was always walking around with an American Girl doll, catalog, but I wasn't married yet. So I'm like, Mom, I don't know what you want me to do about this. And she was always mystified, that I wasn't married yet because, I'm sure your parents like mine got married on the younger side.
Yes. My mom got married at 19 to my dad, my biological father. And then again when she was 35. But
yeah, almost the same for my mom. My mom, so I think she had my brother when she was 18 or 19.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
She was in college. Yes.
Wow.
And
that's
so,
wild.
And then was remarried again when she was, older. But anyway, yeah. So I know, I think I just started probably reading a little bit about what goes on. I know I was the one that brought it up to my gynecologist.
Okay.
And started saying what are my options? Mm-hmm. It was more along the lines of freezing eggs than it was, you can go do this on your own.
Okay.
But it was a TV show. It was one of the Today Show or something on one of those morning news outlets that had a single mother by choice, and she was talking about her story. And that was actually the first time I was like, oh, wait a second, that is an option. Mm-hmm. And I started following that mother because she lived in New York City. Her son was older, but she had written a book about single mothers by choice and started this whole group in the city. Okay. And so I just knew of that group. Mm-hmm. I didn't do anything about that group until I really got serious about it, okay. Like around 38, 39. Mm-hmm. But that was my first entree into like, there's this option out there for me if I need it, you know?
Right. What was it that she was saying on the Today Show, for example, that was so compelling, or that maybe was like a light bulb moment for you where you were like, oh, I could do that?
I just remember thinking like, I have an option here. Like, I didn't know I had an option to have mm-hmm. kids without getting married. And so I think for so many, you know, prior to this day and age of science, or science that was sort of known to be out there, mm-hmm. you sort of thought you had to get married to have kids, mm-hmm. you know? And obviously that would have been my ideal, but it was just nice to know, like, okay, like if I don't meet Mr. Right, I can do this on my own, or there's an option for me to do. Right. I don't know if I can handle it, but I know this, you know, if I want to go down that road, maybe, right. you know, that would help me out here.
Okay. So then what were the next steps for you?
Time sort of went by, and I just remember, I think it was after I had that conversation with my friend, I was about 38, and I said I gave myself like till 40. And my view was that I was going to have my 40th birthday in Italy, like riding my bike, because I always loved to do these biking trips in some, you know, beautiful area of Tuscany. And then I'll get back home, and then I'll start to, you know, figure out this baby thing on my own. But somewhere along the line, I started reading more and more, and, you know, you start getting more educated on how much your fertility does drop as you get older. Mm-hmm. And I started to get a little nervous, so I did go to see a fertility specialist mm-hmm. when I was about 39. And he was the one who was like, I wouldn't wait. I don't know what you know, you can do Tuscany later in life, but mm-hmm. if you're serious about having a baby, then you shouldn't put it off a few years. Okay. And that was the turning point for me. Okay. And I did one last trip before I started anything. I went to Costa Rica on one of my biking trips.
Good for you.
For New Year's. Yeah. And then I came back in January and like started working on the whole process. So, okay. But it was a lot of reading. It was like, I just remember reading every book I could by every single mother about fertility. Yeah. And just learning as much as I could, you know, which never totally prepared you for the actual stuff. But, you know, I felt like I was trying to get myself as educated as I could about it all.
And what were the important people in your life thinking about all of this? Like your dad, for example, and your best friends. Was everybody on board and supportive?
I kept everything. I told my one best friend from college. We chatted about it. Yeah. But I sort of felt a little bit like I was not crazy, but, you know, this was not normal, you know? And I definitely kept it close to my vest. And even once I did start doing it, because there's that whole like failed cycles, you don't want everybody to know, and then they're asking you, did it work or not? So I did tell my mom, and I just said, this is what I'm thinking about doing, and she was right away supportive. I told, you know, a couple of friends, but I really didn't go further than that.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a thing with, you just said like the failed cycles and stuff, that people do hold it in just because they fear like judgment, or is it just like it's so complicated you don't want to get into all of it, it's hard to talk about?
Yeah, and it's an emotional, like it's like you realize once you get into it, like a failed cycle is like, you know, it's failure at different levels. Like, it's like, is my system working okay? Like, am I going to be able to do this? Yeah. Like, I just didn't want a million people asking me, like, did it work? Did it work? It was enough having my mother ask me, you know, every cycle. I couldn't imagine.
With the American Girl catalog.
Yeah.
Like, just like slipping
wandering around the house with that.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, no, I don't know if I cared so much about the stigma as it was just emotionally draining. The whole process was draining. And you're on those hormones and stuff like that. So it amplifies everything. Right. But that was, you know, more my rationale, I think.
Okay. So anything. Specifically in terms of like the medical stuff, what was the process that you went through? Did you decided that you were going to use a donor, like a sperm donor? Or how did you?
Yeah. So I had to, since I didn't have Mr. Right, I had to first figure out the donor side of things before I could start anything with the cycles. Yeah. So I remember it was like January 2010. I spent that whole month. I came back from Costa Rica on like January 2nd. And like that night I started, you know, online trying to figure out the whole donor situation. And, you know, at the time there were a couple of big sperm banks and I just focused on those. I had joined the Single Mothers by Choice group at that point.
Okay.
So
was
I
this
was
the group you were talking about
yes,
before? Okay.
that I was like tuned into sort of, but
you were like
joined
lurking
it.
for a while,
yes.
and then you were like dove in.
And then I dove in, and I got together with a lot of those people. I just did a lot of research, from what banks they used.
Right.
But then it was like dating, because you're going through all these profiles.
Right.
You're like,
right.
At
so
some
tell
level,
me, because I didn't know much about this. Another friend had told me a little bit when they were looking through their own, sperm donor, that there's like a book that you look through with kind of.
I think that's
I don't know.
the old days.
Okay, tell me. About your
and even in
process
my process was
this
technically
was like
the
maybe
old days.
10 years ago that our mutual friend was doing this.
When I went through it, everything was online. So,
okay.
And I'm sure it's even more vamped up now, but at the time it was definitely online. I wasn't going through a book.
Okay. It's like Tinder where you're like swiping
a little
left.
bit. I'm sure there's like a cool app now.
There probably is.
It's so funny.
Spermer.
Yeah. No, I just was a website and you had to log in and, I probably paid some nominal fee. Mm-hmm. But you just go through profiles and a lot of I started out with okay, I'm short, so I cannot get a short donor. It just, I have to give these children
law of averages
a chance.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Did you have a number in mind? They had to be at least X.
It was like 5'11".
Okay.
Even 5'11" is not that tall, but just at some point you have to work with the parameters that they're giving you. So
sure.
I think I said that. I really did, medical files were big, and that was something that you had to look into. I had one of my friends who's a doctor, I sent him, once I had narrowed it down, I'm like, can you just look through all this and just make sure, there's nothing that stands out to you.
Okay.
I definitely was trying to find somebody who just, you don't see pictures of the donors,
right?
But you can get baby pictures.
Oh.
So, but you had to pay extra for that. So until I narrowed it down,
right.
I just went through their description of themselves. So I was actually trying to find somebody who sort of looked like me, blue eyes and, sandy blonde hair, whatever
right.
it was. And then you listen to interviews. And so that was a big thing because I had narrowed it.
Cool.
I had my spreadsheet. I had 45 candidates, had my top, ranked them. And then I
love you, by the way. I'm just picturing, because you're so organized and we're in your home right now, which is so beautiful and organized and clean. I can just imagine mapping it all out on a spreadsheet and being all methodical.
I don't know how else you do it. You know what I mean? Because
Sure.
there was so many and there was so many different things to follow.
Yeah.
So, and I remember thinking okay, I'll listen to the first 5.
Okay. How many had you narrowed it down to?
And it was 45.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's hard. It's just all written descriptions.
Sure.
But I narrowed it down. I'm like, okay. And then again, I don't know if it's still done this study, but if you wanted the baby pictures, you'd had to pay a fee. If you wanted the interviews, you paid a fee. So I was trying not to pay all these extra fees.
Right.
But it wound up, I think my donor wound up being number 38 on my list. Just because everybody else, I would listen to the interview. I'm like, oh, I don't like that.
Yeah. What were some of the interviews? What were they saying?
I can't
Hello.
Yeah. Or just didn't care. Just had this whatever. I'm just here. I don't care. That it just turned me off, you know?
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I never knew anything about this. So no, really. So thank you for...
Yeah, they might have changed things now, but that I just remember listening to the donor I ultimately went with, and he just sounded so nice, like somebody that you were like, oh my gosh, what a nice guy.
Oh,
and,
do you remember what he was saying? Are they just talking about themselves?
They're being interviewed.
They don't say their name, obviously.
No. But one thing that is a big deal is that you can pick a donor who is anonymous or who is open to being connected to the child. I didn't really want somebody that was open. I don't know. I just felt like let's just keep this separate. Mm-hmm. But this donor did say, they said, would you be interested in someday meeting, if there are any children of yours? And he said, maybe, who knows? And I just liked that he was maybe open to it because I thought maybe I'm going to change at some point and want that.
Right. To have that option.
Right.
Okay.
The other big thing for me was it's still around. It's called the Donor Sibling Registry. And that's a place where if you use a donor, and this goes for egg donors too, so egg or sperm donors, you can register there. And so that you can connect with other people that have used the same donor.
Oh, wow.
So I had every donor, at least I don't know about the egg world, but in the sperm world, every donor has a number. So I had then taken my top 45 and I went to the donor sibling registry just to see if anybody had used
Oh.
that donor. And there
okay.
was a mom on there. And I contacted her before I had even picked this donor. And I said, I'm thinking about using this donor.
Number 38.
Right, exactly. And do you, it looks like you've had children. Are they healthy? Anything I should know if I were to select this? And the woman was like, oh my gosh, I have 2 beautiful children. She had used an egg donor also. So she was like, I don't know what came from what,
Gotcha.
but beautiful, blue eyes,
Right.
dimples, like all this stuff, healthy. And I was like, okay, so that obviously
Oh,
influenced
wow.
me.
That must have been a cool phone
And now
call
I'm
or-
still in touch with that mom because
Okay,
she's also
it is the same donor.
same donor.
So your boys are
technically,
half
yeah,
siblings, basically?
yeah.
Have they met?
We haven't met, but they don't live near here, but
Okay.
we have a little Facebook group with
Okay.
other donors.
So there's other people
yeah,
too that.
yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
so
funny looking at the
cool.
pictures. You're like, oh my gosh, like I see.
Wow.
Especially one of my little twinnies. Like
Now,
in-
does the donor know about the group? Like, does he know who ends up using
he can
him?
know. I
Okay.
don't know what his. We have no connection to him.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank goodness there's not knock on wood, not been
Okay.
any medical issues or anything
Yeah.
like that to need to track him down.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah, he could go on there and see.
Yeah.
The
This
data
is fascinating. It's so cool.
It
that
is
all
very
this
cool.
Exists.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
and
know, and
we've connected a lot of people through Facebook. Like the mom I originally reached out to, I feel like she's really good at like, she's on the donor sibling registry too. So if people do, have used that donor, then she finds out about it and she'll bring them
Okay.
into our Facebook group and connect.
Okay. So then, what was it that made you finally decide on this gentleman?
Honestly, it was the interview, and it was his medical records were good. He
you
wasn't
look
too
at
sure.
education and all
Yes.
that,
Oh,
obviously?
thank
Okay.
you. That was the other thing.
Yeah.
Yes. It was like I just wanted to make sure. I think it had like SAT scores and
Okay.
ACT scores, and I think I can't remember what his profession was, but it was something in the medical field. I just
Okay.
felt like he's
Yeah.
got a head on his shoulders,
Great.
like
Yeah.
yeah. And then obviously having the connection to this mom that had used it, like I
Yeah.
just felt like okay, this could work.
Yeah, definitely. So then the process for you have to go through the whole thing with the egg retrieval and taking all the...
Well, so my first pregnancy, when I went in, my doctor was like, here are your options. You can do IUI or you can do IVF.
And were your eggs and everything looking good? Like
Everything
you weren't
was
having
looking
any
pretty
health-
good. Yeah.
Okay.
Like everything was looking good.
That's great.
So it was just age was, against me. But I decided to do IUIs when I first tried because I figured why not? Why put my body through IVF if I don't have to?
Sure.
But I did 4, and on the 4th, that night I had my insemination. I did back-to-back inseminations, like because sometimes they said that can increase your chances.
Okay.
So I remember I did on a Friday night, and then a Saturday morning, or a Friday morning and a Saturday morning. And I was doing a lot of like acupuncture and like all of that in conjunction with this.
Yes.
And I had a trip planned to Bhutan, which is like this little country, near China and Nepal. And it was like a biking and hiking trip, and there were fertility temples there. And I just remember thinking like, okay, so if this cycle works, then great. And if it doesn't, then at least I can go to all these fertility temples and that can like help,
Right.
improve my chances for the next time
Yes.
I try. And I was there and
So you went.
I went, but I was cautious. I remember being like, because they say you shouldn't like overexert yourself. And here I am biking and hiking in the Himalaya mountains. So I took it as easy as I could. And then on my flight home, I was in the airport. I was in like a Thailand airport hotel by myself. I had a pregnancy test with me and I was like, oh my God, it's
How many
possible.
days later was it?
It was 2 weeks later. Exactly 2 weeks later. Yeah.
Wow. So you
Yeah.
found on the airport?
I found out, in the airport hotel
my
by myself, like in
God.
Thailand.
What
yeah.
did you do? What did you think? Did you burst into tears?
I don't know. I just didn't believe it. I was like, I'm sure this thing is wrong. Like I sort of forgot to even check the test because I had already done 3 cycles and they were all negative. So I'm like,
Okay.
I'll just do it to do it because I more wanted to take my Ambien on the plane ride home than anything else. And then it was positive. So I'm like, okay, I won't take the Ambien.
Okay,
I won't have
can't
that
take the
wine
Ambien.
that I
Fine.
normally would have for a long flight. But yeah, I just remember being like just so excited, to find out. And when I landed, I called my mom. And she had known. She was like, "Are you pregnant?" And I said, "I'm like, I
got the
could
catalog.
be." Yeah. I said I could be actually, but I had to go. I went straight into work that day.
Okay.
And I think it was the next day I went for my blood test with my doctor and they confirmed it. But
wow.
yeah.
That's so cool.
So for that cycle I did IUI plus some fertility stuff and
then how was the pregnancy?
The whole pregnancy was fabulous. Like I worked out to the day I gave birth. Like it was amazing. I for some reason, I don't know why, I wanted to try to have my baby without any drugs.
Okay.
And I did try. I think I was in labor for like 19 hours. So, but I had the epidural. But in the process of having the epidural, they had punctured my spine. So that was my only complication. After I had the baby, I was vomiting and like couldn't hold my head up. But I thought that's how you feel after you have a baby.
Sure. Have you never done it before?
It's like,
this is normal,
you feel
right?
like you're in a car wreck. Okay. And so I actually got discharged from the hospital. And I just remember like, I was supposed to be at, one of our mutual friends was having a party that day. And I called another friend and I was like, I think I need to go to the ER. Like I am a mess, but I've got this 3-day-old baby with me.
Yeah. And who was helping you? Like, was anybody in the delivery room with you? Or
I had like 4 friends in the delivery room with me.
Cool.
Yeah. We had music blasting when Henry came out. We had the doctor had stopped everything. He's like, okay, put on YouTube, Beautiful Day, and like to this day, that's like we always play that on his birthday. Yeah,
that's so cool.
It was a party in there. It was really
great.
fun. Yeah,
I was in the delivery room with one of my best friends. And when the doctor had made the playlist, she had a C-section.
Funny is it?
And when her baby son came out, the song that was playing that I will never forget that was so funny was PIMP by 50 Cent. It's like really dirty. It's like, I'm a motherfucking PIMP. And they're like, here's your son.
Oh,
you're like, what?
He's going to be a rapper.
So every time I hear that
that's
song,
hilarious.
I think of him.
But yeah, that was the only complication was after the birth, And so...
Did you have to go back into the hospital?
I did,
then?
yeah.
Okay.
There's a pretty easy fix when they do this, like apparently, but it was really painful for a while, and I had to be in the hospital for 24 hours. So I had a baby nurse at my apartment with the baby and with Henry, and our friends did like a rotation of people in. Over the course of the day until I got home to help out too. Just
that was
because
probably hard not being with him.
It was horrible, and I had just met this woman, this nurse. So I had, it sounds horrible, but I didn't have a choice. They wouldn't let me. They had me on all these crazy meds in the hospital until they had ruled out that it was not preeclampsia, which you can get, after you give birth.
Okay. Yeah.
They kept me on like this magnesium drip, which makes you crazy, and I couldn't have the baby there, so I didn't have a choice.
I don't want to totally fast forward, but you also had another pregnancy,
right? Yes,
your twin boys. So
yes.
Tell me about then. When did you decide to do this again?
Right,
because they're close in age, right?
So I had already known, even like the minute I had Henry, I knew I wanted 2. Because I grew up, my brothers were technically half brothers. They're 10 and 12 years older than I am. And I felt like I lived an only child life. And I just always wanted a sibling around. And I thought that's a really nice gift that you can give your child. And so I knew I wanted 2. And so I had asked the doctor, like, okay, I'm going to have, this baby in January. When can I come back again? And even when I went for my 6-week post, delivery checkup, like wait about 6 months. So I did. 6 months later, I went back in.
Wow.
And Henry was a really easy baby. So I was a little delusional about, being a mom still. Like it just seemed easy. And so I went back in, and I remember the same doctor that, had motivated me to do everything sooner was like, okay, so I had turned 40 since I had Henry. Okay. I was 39 when I had him. Okay. And then the summer happened because I went back in. My birthday's in August, and I went back in August. He's like, okay, now you're 40. And here's like, I remember him turning the screen of the computer around. He's like, here's what just happened to your fertility. I was like, wait, like yesterday that happened? Like what?
Like overnight?
Oh my gosh. So I
yeah.
These fertility doctors definitely spend their day with people with fertility issues. And I get that. I don't know that I necessarily had fertility issues. I just didn't have Mr. Right. So, it's hard, but I was taking everything very seriously. So I just decided, you know what, let me just make this process shorter if I can, and maybe up the probabilities, since the probabilities of IUI were, lower. And so I did IVF for that, for my next pregnancy.
Okay.
I did 2 cycles. So my second cycle wound up working. And in the process of doing my second cycle, what I think was crazy is that, the doctors, I just remember they kept telling me, you're lucky to be pregnant. Like at your age, you're lucky. You feel like at 40, you're
it's like
a million
I
years
remember
old.
them calling me with Sunny, because I was 40 as well. There was a geriatric pregnancy. And that term, I was like, what
are you saying?
It sounds so scary and terrible.
I think I would have cried if they said that. It was the high risk, I think, was the
I got
term,
geriatric. And I was like, oh my God, am I like 100?
But you were younger than I was, right?
I was, with Ever, I was 35, and with Sunny, I had him at 41.
Oh, 41. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where I decided to, just let me just do the IVF. So the first IVF cycle did not work. And I remember, again, they were like really negative. They were like, you're lucky, and I wouldn't have high expectation. I just remember every doctor so negative.
Yeah.
But the second cycle, my mom actually had become really sick. And I was like, I had already started all the drugs for this cycle, which is, as you know, it's a lot. And it's a lot in your body. And, I just decided I'm going to go through with this cycle, even though I know she's very sick. And at least let me just get through the cycle, and then I'll be able to be with her and help her out. And, I thought she was just going to be very sick for a long time, but she wound up passing away. And she wound up dying the night that, I was on my way back into the city for my blood work with my then I think he was like 10 months old, Henry. And, we figured out she wasn't going to make it through the night. And so I wound up, when we got the call that she wasn't going to make it through the night, I wound up just doing a pregnancy test, and it was like screaming positive. I was like, okay. So I had
a megaphone. It actually spoke to you.
I put Henry to bed. My dad was at the house, and I drove up to the hospital, and she was not conscious, but I told her, and so I felt like she was very much a part of that, pregnancy.
Right.
Well, also when they did all the retrieval for the eggs during that pregnancy, again, she was so sick. She would talk to me, and I really felt like she was channeling 2 worlds. Like she was, at moments, she would say to me, like, can you see the beautiful fields? And I was like, I don't see that, Mom. And she's like, I keep forgetting you can't see what I'm seeing. So she was starting to leave us.
Yeah. And
the results from that IVF were like, even the doctors were like, we have never seen results from a 40-year-old. Like it was, I can't remember how many eggs I had, and like beautiful embryos and all of that. Wow. They were like, so when I had gone back, when they put the embryos back in, because I had so many, and we were expecting to have like 1 or 2, and you put in 2, right. But I had so many that he was like, well, let me, we've never had to have this conversation of whether, and also we waited because, there was at day 3, you put him back in, or day 5, I think, and you increase your chances on day 5. So he wound up putting back 2 on day 5. They normally would not do more than that. He's like, we could put back 3, but and I said, you know what? He's like, but you're lucky to even get 1. We, if you want to really do 3.
Yeah.
I was like, no, let's just do 2.
Do the 2. Okay.
And then when the nurses called me, I had the blood work done out, near where my mom had passed away, and I had blood work done locally there, and all the nurses knew what was going on with my mom. They were all like really supportive, but they called me and they're like, okay, you not only are you pregnant, you're really pregnant. Like my numbers were off the charts. So they said, you just need to start getting your head around twins. And I had all my family, like we were planning my mother's funeral, like, and I remember telling all my family, like, I think I'm having more than 1 baby. Like, and they were like, what is going on? So, a lot of people are like, when did you come to terms with the fact that you're having twins? And I still say, like, I'm still coming to terms with that. Like that whole, like, it was craziness. It was, but
that's so cool that you got to be with her and tell her. And I'm sure she understood, even though she wasn't able to express that.
Well, I think she did it. Like, I think she purely
had a hand in it.
Well, and she also,
I just got the chills.
I know. I think she one of her last conversations.
I totally believe in that kind of stuff too.
She said to me, cool. I know you have Henry, but I really wish you had a big family. And she said those words to me, and I remember thinking, like, Mom, I'm okay. I have Henry. Like, I didn't want to even tell her I was doing an IVF cycle, because if it didn't work, I didn't want her to be upset. So she didn't even know while she was dying I was doing it. And so that's why I'm like, that's why I think I had the twins. Their due date was on her birthday, which, they were born earlier because they're twins,
Right.
but, like,
that's so cool.
She was in there.
The universe is so cool, and magic is real.
I know. But I didn't have any girls. So that's the only thing where I'm like, you know what, Mom? You got everything else, but like you didn't get your girl in there.
Yeah. So then the twins came along.
Came along.
The age difference is
18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so awesome.
I know. It's it's crazy. Yeah. But yeah, it's nice. There are positives and negatives. I look at people who have, like your span, and you're like, well, you have your little helper, when Sonny is, as growing up. Right. But I didn't have any helpers. It was just pure like diaper phase.
Yes.
But at least we're going through all the phases together. I feel like even now we're, I'm sitting on a baseball field. I may be running from baseball field to baseball field, but and sometimes they can be on the same team, and so there is that benefit to having them close in age and also having all boys. So.
Yeah, I would love, if you don't mind, to get into a little bit more of that about the juggle right now and like your lifestyle. So you've got Henry, who's 8, Brady and Hudson are 7,
six and a half. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about, I always see pictures of you on social media and stuff, and they're playing they play all the sports.
Every sport, yeah.
they're the cutest boys.
Thank you.
You guys have so much fun. You're never not doing something.
We are.
Their lives are so full, and I have so much respect for you.
Thank you.
Really, because you're such a strong
that.
person just in general, and to be able to do this, 3 kids in any situation, I think is crazy. And hard.
I think part of it is ignorance is bliss, perhaps, because had I known, I don't know if I would have done anything different. Like, I just feel like I'm so blessed to have these boys in my life. They're 3 healthy boys. My biggest challenge is the energy burn on any given day. Like, I just, we're so busy not because I feel like I'm this like super mom but I have to. If I don't keep them busy, then, they start to fight with each other, or they drive me crazy because, they need to get out and run. So it is more out of necessity that I keep them busy. Mm-hmm. They happen to love sports, so that's a beautiful outlet for us. And I'm very grateful for, sports and what it has allowed me to do, where a coach can take over for a little while and I can sort of watch them. But no, the juggle is harder than I thought it was ever going to be. Mm-hmm. When I lived in the city with the boys, and I did have help largely out of necessity. I just can't have 3 babies and do it all on your own and keep everybody safe and take them to Central Park and, do what you need to do and still come home with 3, babies in one piece. Like that is,
that's the part of it. It's just keeping them alive.
That was my goal. Like, I'm just trying to keep us alive and keep me sane. Mm-hmm. And then we moved out of the city, and, my old Henry was entering kindergarten. The twins were in a 4s program. Everything was all day. So I felt like, and I work from home, so I felt like I couldn't justify the help, even though most normal people would have had help. But I couldn't figure out enough hours. I'm also like a do-it-yourself type of person. So even when I had help, I'm like, I am doing everything. Like, I'm not good with that, So I wound up, I don't have help. I haven't had help for maybe 3 years now.
Wow.
I'll have an occasional if I try to get out. But, what's hard is it's just getting the logistics of our lives together. Because now, you always think it's going to get easier, just in terms of general things. But now my logistics on any given Saturday is, I had to hire somebody just to help me because I've got one kid in one sport in one town and another kid at the same time has a sport in another town, because they don't tell you the sport schedules when you sign up. So, and I can't, say to one kid, you can't play this because, my other kid has his sport. Right. And trying to just treat everybody fairly. Yeah. But then I have to make sure I get to everybody's games, because obviously everybody wants mom at their games. Right. So
you need a hologram or something.
I know. If I could somehow replicate me. And that's my biggest challenge, is just making my logistics. Or if I can't be sick. I broke my wrist last summer. That was
I remember that
nightmare.
I can't believe you went through that.
I thank goodness my community here is beyond. I could never have survived. But, people just helping me get the kids from point A to point B. The weekend I had my surgery on my wrist, people just took my boys all weekend and kept them entertained. And, they'd come back at night, and my nanny from the city came up and we piecemealed it, but I can't be out of commission. Right. So it's stressful. And
do you get that thing of which I get sometimes, is like, wait, where's, you're always like, where's so-and-so? Did I forget? Like my biggest fear is forgetting to pick them up somewhere or drop them off somewhere. It's not so much the dropping off. It's the like forgetting about picking them up and they're sitting there waiting for you.
I haven't had that yet because I'm a little neurotic about that. Okay. But where I am messing up, where I never thought Kimberly would mess up on this front is like I'll show up like our dentist appointment. And to get a dentist appointment for all three of them back to back, you know, it's impossible. And I remember we were killing time because you never want to get there too early because then you got to entertain them in the doctor's office. Mm-hmm. Like, and I remember getting the call being like, you're supposed to be here like 15 minutes ago for this. And I'm like, no, it's at 9:30. They're like, no, it's at 8:30. I'm like, I don't mess things up like that, but I do now. Like I do. Like I mess up like a birthday party. I'm like, wait, who had to be at what party was that? Like,
yeah,
once they're there, I'll always remember to pick them up. Okay. But like I'm getting them there and remembering and keeping track of all their different activities.
What system do you use? You must have like crazy calendars and reminders and all that stuff.
I do. I have like alarms that go off. Like 2 days until so-and-so's birthday party, buy the gift, whatever it is. But what's become a little bit easier now, when the twins first went to kindergarten, they were they have them in separate classes now, which is a great thing. But people didn't know they were twins, which is fine, and my goal is that they socialize and make friends because they are very close. But now they sort of, they've gotten to know all the kids in kindergarten. People know they're twins. So at least those two are getting invited to parties together. And, it just makes the logistics a little bit easier. Yeah. And also the psychology of like, why is he going to more parties than I am? Just dealing with all that stuff, Right. So that's become a little bit easier.
I remember thinking whenever was first in preschool and getting so excited to start getting invited to the birthday parties, but then now she's 9, and then you get to a point where you're like, please don't invite us to any more parties.
I know.
You just don't want to.
We are at peak right now. Yeah, I feel like Henry's have started to I feel like at 8, 9,
then they start doing smaller parties with just a few kids, and you're like, okay, that's fine.
Yes, and then but Hudson and Brady, they're at their peak right now. Like even Henry said it because normally he's the one we're dropping off, picking up. Like Hudson and Brady are along for the ride, and recently Henry's like, where do they have to be now, Mom? Like it's and we've had a little bit more time together, which is nice because I never get one-on-one time with my kids. So but yes, it makes it crazy.
So what advice would you give to anybody who wanted to try and become a single mom? Someone that couldn't find Mr. Right, as you said, or do you have any words of wisdom after doing it now for 8 years?
For me, as much research as I did on this whole thing, you can never predict how hard it actually is. Whether it was the sleep training, whether it's the potty training, whether it's, what I'm going through now with just the logistics and everything that's involved with raising 3, kids on your own. But I just feel like you can do all the research you want. You can read every book you want. You can interview everybody you want who's done it.
Right.
But it's just got to be in your heart, because if you don't really want kids, obviously you would never do this. So if you really want kids and this is what you want, don't live life with regrets, because I know that's what I kept telling myself. You have a limited window, unfortunately. And so you do need to start thinking about it. And there's just a reality to that. No matter what, even if you freeze your eggs, that's not a guarantee that those eggs are going to turn into viable embryos.
Right.
So I do think like if I were doing it all over again, one thing I would have done, I wish I was smarter about freezing the eggs earlier in life, because I remember seeing people who had, when I was going in for my IVF retrievals that were 40, having their eggs frozen, were just retrieved. And I kept thinking like, you can do that and it's fine. You worry about that person and how good those eggs are going to turn out. And maybe there's false hope there. I don't know. Maybe I'm just on my,
No.
But I really wish, I think every woman should just, because you also don't know what life is going to deal with you in terms of sickness or meeting a man, whatever it is. Like, it should be part of like life. Like you turn, I don't know what age, 25, freeze your eggs, like done, like, right. Ladies, and then you just have them there, but it is not an insurance policy. It's just helping you a little bit, in case you need it. And it does give you a little extra sense of like, maybe I don't have to rush into doing this. I didn't feel rushed when I did it. I was definitely ready.
Right.
But I did it a few years ahead of when I, in my head had outlined it.
Yeah.
But no, you can, again, it's the most wonderful thing I've ever done. You just have to really want to be a mom to, to take this on, because it's not easy. It doesn't get easier, I don't even think it gets easier when I go to college because I don't even know how I'm going to get to all the college like drop-offs and like the homecoming week or whatever parents' weekend's probably going to be all the same. I'm praying they all go to the same school. But it's the best thing I could have ever done with my life.
Well, I'm so inspired by what you do, and you're such a great mom. You really are. So thank you for sharing your story.
My pleasure, Allie.
We made it without tears. I thought I was going to cry at some point, but thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me on this. Right. I appreciate it.
Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed talking to her. I learned so much. And again, 3:45 in the morning, Kimberly, you are insane and I love you. If you are a fan of this podcast, please pass it around to anybody you think might benefit from it or enjoy it. And also, I feel so weird saying this, but you kind of have to. Please go to the iTunes page and subscribe, rate, and write a review if you feel so inclined. It really helps us out and get more exposure. So thank you again, and I will talk to you guys next time.